It's great to welcome you to this online service this morning that's now going out to so many people around High Wycombe and other places as well. And I'd love you to introduce yourselves firstly, A, your connection with St Andrews, and then B, your leadership roles that you either have now or have had, particularly in relation to what I'm asking you. So I'm going to start on what I can see on my screen, which is top left, Abi Hedges. Do you want to introduce yourself, Abi?
Well, you've just said my name, but hello, I'm Abi Hedges. And my relationship with St Andrews goes way back because both of my grandparents have attended St Andrews Church, and then my parents who got married there. And when I was 14, my dad and my mum came back to the church to lead as vicar. My dad's a vicar who is here, Simon Dust. Then he really kindly decided to hire for me a future husband who became the youth worker at the church. And so I was last part of St Andrews when I was 18 years old, and have since then moved away and not been there anymore. I have led in both the church sector and in the charity sector, so have been a kids pastor in a church for 6 years, led as part of the New Wine conferences, the 5 to 7s venue, there for a number of years as well, and now am the founder and CEO of a youth charity up in Redcar, which is seeking to give hope and a future and practical skills really to young people, particularly those who are disadvantaged and kind of on the edge of society.
My name's Charles Vernon. Louise and I have been at St Andrews since 1974, and we've done various leadership roles, from leading the youth work at one time through to being very involved with the extension, being a church warden, involved in lots of different things in the church over that period of time. And I've had a career in business, mostly in the furniture industry, where I've run companies of various different sizes all over the world. I'm now retired. Louise says I'm semi-retired, and I chair a couple of charities, and I'm non-executive director on a few boards.
So I'm Rachel Chapman, and I've been involved with St Andrews for coming up for 20 years, I think now, because Daniel was a tiny baby when we first arrived. Married to Dave, and we've got 4 very tall children. I'm the smallest now in the family, 5'10". I've been involved on and off for most of those years with the children's work at St Andrews, helping to lead that, and also having Abi under my wing at one point with that as well. And in my work life, I'm deputy for Alfriston School, which is a special needs school in Beaconsfield for girls with moderate learning difficulties, speech, language and communication difficulties, and other needs as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. And one of the real reasons I've got you here is to ask you about how your faith intersects with the leadership roles that you have. So I'm going to ask you just a few questions around that, and I thought I might start with Charles. And the question is, I'm going to ask all 3 of you, is how has your faith affected the way that you lead?
Well, my first answer is probably what everyone will say, never enough. So, you know, whatever you look at, you could say, I could do more, I could try harder, I could be more open about my faith. So I would start by saying that, never enough. But to look for the positives, I think I've learned to be prepared to walk the hard road. That in what you do, be prepared to not go for the easy way, but to look for the way which is the right way, which is usually the hard way, the road less traveled, the road which is more difficult. And I think I've also learned that it's better to rather than talk, to walk, to actually go the journey rather than to tell others. And that means leading from the front. It means in business, I think in many areas, but certainly in my life in business, seeing people and lives rather than figures. You know, actually relating to people and trying to understand people. You know, Jesus was a people person. He understood people. He understood a lot. He understood everything. But it's too easy in business to look at figures and ideas rather than people. So I think understanding and leading people.
I think for me, my work colleagues know that I'm a Christian. They know that I go to church, and actually dropping that conversation every kind of now and again, or they will pick up on things. So if it's a case of this last week, we were having a staff social at the end of work yesterday, and the head Jenna, she said to me, she went, "Rachel, can you put please, you know, can you make sure the weather's there as well?" So for me, it's about leading with a faith, with a passion, and with a kind heart. I think kindness in leadership is really important. And actually, again, what Charles said about relationships is hugely important. Have time to listen, and to just ask if someone's had a hospital appointment and they had, because they've had to tell you that, actually following up with that. How was that? Was that okay? Anything we can do to support you with that? So for me, it's leading with kindness, with faith. I also have in my office, I've only got a little cupboard as an office, but I have the a book of daily Bible readings, and I just will take that down and try and read that. I try and get in first so that I can have a bit of time to do that. I'm not always brilliant at doing that at all, but for me, that really sets me up. And actually, I have to say the daily devotionals coming through on email have been for that as well. And that's really supported me with my leadership as well. So yeah, hope that answers that.
I guess what I thought when I was thinking about this question was, I hope that my faith affects the whole of who I am. And so when my faith is so intrinsically part of who I am, then it has to affect the way that I lead. What these guys said about kind of relationship was really, really what came to my mind as well. I think people want to follow somebody who they have a relationship with. I was just thinking about people that we think of as either great or memorable leaders, whether they kind of in a good way or a bad way. Often it's because we remember who they were, like something kind of a leader that has like spark to them, something you're like, yes, they're inspiring and I want to follow them. And was thinking about kind of in my leadership journey, particularly something that Johnny used to say to me when we led together at St. Paul's, where he was the youth pastor there and I was the children's pastor. And as part of the New Wine gap year scheme, we used to have different interns come and work with us, and they'd kind of work under different members of staff. So one would always come and be part of the kids' work with me, and they'd be the kids intern for the year. And Johnny used to say to me, he'd say, "You always get on really well with the intern that kind of comes and works under you." And I said back to him, well, it's because it's really important to me that's like a choice that I've made to get on really well with the person and the people that I'm leading, whether that's teams, and particularly those that you work closely with. I think you see in Jesus's ministry, don't you, that he led actually like hundreds and thousands. The crowds followed him where he went, but he had a close circle who he really led, and he led them well, and he led them out of a place of relationship. And when you lead out of a place of relationship, I think people really want to follow you, and they're the ones that went on to found the early church and do significant things, because they had a significant relationship with Jesus.
Now, over your life, what I'd love to hear, maybe shorter answers to this one, which says, who's inspired you in your leadership the most and why?
I found this really hard to start off with, and I was talking to Dave about it, but actually it's been a whole range of people that have affected my leadership. But the one person I think is actually my dad. And he was a director of education for Windsor Maidenhead and had to make some really tough decisions. But I was also thinking about Abi, and several years ago, Abi sent me a letter about being an encourager. And actually my dad is also, he's fed that into me and for me to be an encourager. So actually the person that I think has affected my leadership the most is my dad.
Great answer. Thank you very much. I better not go to Abi now. She might say her dad as well. You never know.
You wish.
So, yeah, I wish. So I'll go to Charles then instead. Let's go to Charles.
Well, I thought about this the other way around. And I thought, what is the quality in people that has affected me the most? And then who fitted the bill? And I think it's leaders who know what they're good at and know what they're not good at. People who know who they are and what they can do, and leaders who enable others, because leadership is about leading people somewhere. If you lead from the front or from the back, whatever the style is, you're taking people from one place to another. So it was those qualities. It was knowing yourself and what you're good at, and enabling others. And there's a list as long as my arm at that. But top of that list is John Hughes, who was vicar at St Andrews. Many will remember him. But he, at a very important time in our lives, as our lives as adults were forming, and as our lives as mature Christians was developing, he led that way. He went that way before us. And when you see someone doing that in a leadership role, they're taking you forward, but you're also looking at how they're leading and learning to lead. I hope John's not watching the service, because he would be embarrassed and deny it all. But I suspect there's quite a long list of people who would put John as a model leader who you look up to.
Yeah, I would be one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Abby, how about yourself?
Well, part of me wanted to go with the Sunday school answer and say Jesus. No, isn't it? He's by far the ultimate leader, and the leader which no human can really ever look up to. Can't ever look up to, but can ever stand against or compete with as a leader. I was thinking really, I kind of have two quick ones. One from kind of culture in the wider world, and the person that who I thought is just a boss is Michelle Obama. I mean, let's get her in the White House, right? She leads with let's get political about this. I just think she leads with real integrity, and I think what I see is that she has dignity, and she has grace, and she is humble and wise, and she uses her power and influence to stand up for the least and the large, the marginalized and the disadvantaged, and that's what I see in her that really inspires me. And the other one, funnily enough, that I kind of wanted to mention was Rachel Chapman, because I remember the letter that I sent you years ago, and I know that she'll be really embarrassed when I say this, but I remember when I moved at age 14 to St Andrew's Church, I really found it difficult. I really found it difficult to go from a church that I'd been in that started off to have sort of 30 people in it as a 5-year-old, and to grow up in that church as it grew, knowing everybody who was in it, to moving to a church that was much larger, coming along as the vicar's daughter and feeling like everybody suddenly had this expectation of who I should be, and feeling like I found it hard to find my place. I felt like I found it hard to find my place initially in the youth group. And so I kind of went to the children's work to hide a little bit, to see if I could find my place there. And what Rachel did is I felt like she really modeled something that leaders do really well. I mean, she gave me every opportunity possible to just hand the mic over. Abby, why don't you do this Sunday? Abby, why don't you do that Sunday? Soon enough, she was firstly my Sunday school leader there, and then I was leading that Sunday. And then she brought me onto the leadership team to lead as like a 16-year-old alongside other adults, and just trusted me. And I thought, the one thing that I see today so many leaders really fail to do is to hand over the microphone. They stand there and we see these leaders getting older and older and older and older. And I'm not saying that we don't need their wisdom, because we really do, but they stand in the way of raising anybody else up. And I think a really good leader gets out of the way and lets somebody else who they see has leadership gifts to stand up. And I just think Rachel did that so well. And then I went on to go and do a job in exactly what she had raised me up in. So when that was the first person that I thought of when I had that question. And I laughed because I knew that she was going to be in this, and someone else that you were asking questions to, but I would have answered her anyway.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts and your wisdom, which has been wonderful to hear. And I look forward to sharing that with a wider church when we have on Sunday, and then it goes on YouTube. So whenever you're watching this, I hope you enjoy it. So Thank you again ever so much, guys.
Yeah.